The Colorado Avalanche are set to begin their defense of their Stanley Cup championship. Kyle Sullivan of Locked On Avalanche is here to talk about what to expect from the Avs this year in the postseason. And welcome, everybody, to the Locked On Road to the Stanley Cup. I'm Gil Martin, and the Road to the Stanley Cup continues as we welcome Kyle Sullivan from Locked On Avalanche to take stock of the Avs' chances to make a deep postseason run and possibly repeat as Stanley Cup champions. Kyle, what do you think is the biggest storyline for the Avs as they head into the playoffs this year?
It's how the Avalanche have got themselves in this position despite the injuries they sustained throughout the year. They just announced Gabriel Landeskog will not be joining the team through the playoffs, so that means an entire season missed for the Avalanche captain. And that's on top of, insert name here, they were probably injured at some point during the season, and the Avalanche are still fighting for the Central and still one of the best teams in the West.
Yeah, and, Landeskog, you figure you'll miss his leadership in addition to what he does on the ice.
Yeah, that experience, that whole team has rallied around Landeskog and what he brings to the ice and what he could do on the ice in the moment. He could get in the slot and dirty up the power play and make it so much easier to make an attack. But where his value really comes in is where you don't see him on camera. When he's talking to the young guys on the bench, passing the iPad back and forth, what he does in the locker room. There's the story of him picking up Ben Myers from the airport when he made his Avalanche debut. It's the things the captain does that this team rallies around, and they've had to kind of step up in his absence. And it's almost a rallying cry at this point. We have to win this one for Landeskog.
There you go. What is the biggest reason why the Avs may repeat as Stanley Cup champions?
Well, the Avalanche decided this year our playoff mantra is going to be one way, our way. The Avalanche way this year has been overcoming adversity, and at some point, it's either going to be what you do or it's going to hinder you from going any further. You've had career seasons from Nathan MacKinnon and Mikko Rantanen. You have injuries to Cale Makar. If he's going to join them in the playoffs is still up in the air. At some point, this luck and this, just doing what the Avalanche do, it's either going to run out, and that could be a problem when you're facing teams like Seattle, first time in the playoffs. Minnesota finally got a legitimate team for the playoff push. A lot of teams are building their team around what you did last year, and it's not just enough to do what you do. You have to take that next step, and if the Avalanche could do that is the big question.
And what would be the biggest reason they would not win the Stanley Cup again this year?
Running out of gas. This team has been in survival mode since puck drop. Right after the Chicago Blackhawks game to open the season, it's been survival mode. And do they have enough left in the tank? Is it enough? Does goaltending hold up? Do the injuries creep up in the playoffs? The Avs have scratched their way here. And last year it was more of a dominant push. In the last 2 weeks were just garbage time. Just to see if the Avalanche have enough in the tank, that could be their big deficit this year.
Well, we've talked a little bit about some of the guys who are not going to be playing or who may not be playing, but who is the key player to watch this year for the Avs in the postseason?
Well, you have to rely on Nathan MacKinnon and Mikko Rantanen, absolutely, if you're going to make any kind of headway in the playoffs. But me and my co-hosts on Locked On Avalanche, Chris Vaselli, we talk all the time about playoff JT Compher. It's a completely different animal than what he gives you in the regular season. Keep an eye on JT Compher. He's not a name that you hear a lot in the headlines, but when the playoffs roll around, he is on the next level. And you anticipate, with all the injuries that the Avalanche has sustained, that JT Compher is going to take that next step up, and he is going to be a force to be reckoned with in the playoffs.
What would a successful playoff run look like for the Avs, and what's at stake if they fall short? Is it repeat or bust?
It's a soft repeat or bust. This team is expected to win the Stanley Cup, but with all the injuries that we mentioned, it's one of those that it's the easy fall line. It's the scapegoat. Like, if they lose, you just point back to the season and say, if we had insert player name here, you could say Landeskog. You could say, if we had Cale Makar healthy all year, Bowen Byram, it wouldn't be like this. It would be a understandable pass if they don't repeat because of the injuries they've had to endure all year long.
All right. Well, Kyle, want to thank you very much. That's going to do it for our Avalanche preview here on Locked On Road to the Stanley Cup. Be sure to subscribe to or follow Locked On Avalanche for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.